I'm Amanda Knox, and you're listening to Hard Knox. All right, welcome to another Who's Right? It's me.
And it's me.
But mostly me. So today we're going to talk about a kind of thorny question. I like this one because I feel like it's got like scandal vibes. So ooh, this is what you're going to talk about. So we're going to talk about marriage. Marriage is what brings us together today. Marriage. So we got to talking about marriage off of this like idea of, is it like a spiritual partnership or a practical alliance? And that got us thinking about arranged marriages. And are those actually a good idea? So, what initially
counterintuitive proposal from Amanda Knox. Pro-arranged marriage.
Counterintuitive. Yeah, I'm opening to this idea. Now, some caveat language needs to be or even just some acknowledgments needs to go into this. So in the history of all human history, arranged marriages have not really benefited women. Let's just throw that out there.
Yeah.
And, as recently as still today, there are women who are sort of treated like chattel and passed from the hand of one man to another in a patriarchal society. To this day, this is a thing that happens, and arranged marriages are a thing. And so in that sort of terms, of course, arranged marriages are bad. I do not support them. In the sense that like the woman has no autonomy over her own life choices, and she is just the possession of her father until she's the possession of her husband until she dies. So that's not what we're talking about. And
it
yet,
sounds like maybe you think there's something of value in that world, even if on net it's a negative.
Well, okay, so here's what I'm thinking. So when I got to thinking about this question of, is it a spiritual partnership or is it a practical alliance? Like, I don't know, maybe it's just the season of life we're in, but it feels like it's a very practical thing. Like, not in a negative.
Me.
No, that's not true. I'm not saying I don't love you. That's not it. But like, are you my soulmate? No.
What? I mean, come on.
In a sense, is anyone anyone's soulmate, right?
If you're rejecting soulmates as a category of thing that exists, then sure.
Yes, I am. But like even just this this romantic notion. So let's go back to this like whole shift in worldview, which is when the romantics come into play and they start suggesting on the basis of people having souls that marriage should be an institution that is sacred based upon love because God is love, right? So there's this almost like divine...
I didn't know that. That's the origin of that?
Yeah, like that like love is supposed to be like divine. It's almost like God is arranging the marriage by having you fall in love with someone. Instead of it being this like very practical, here are 10 cows for my second daughter, like that kind of arrangement. Like there's this more romantic,
that's a good name for a band, incidentally.
10 cows for my second daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So like this idea that there's like love is itself sacred. And so you shouldn't treat marriage as anything else other than like a spiritual sacrament, and love itself is a spiritual endeavor. And I'm going to push back on that. Like, I don't think love is all that spiritual. It's a lot of it is just physical, right? Like you're physically attracted to a person at the right time and place in your life, presumably, where you'll be able to like fuse into an alliance which is based upon those feelings of love, but which ultimately are triggered by really just like physical chemistry and timing.
I don't
And
think, I mean, you're just reducing it to neurochemistry, and that's fine, but that doesn't speak about the 10 cows side of it.
okay,
Like,
well, the 10 cows side of it is, and I'm making my argument here, that like ultimately what derives from this neurochemical process is itself a practical alliance for the survival of ourselves and our children,
I mean, it
right?
is for
Like,
some people, and then there's, star-crossed lovers who who drag each other down, right?
well, sure, but that's the like the flip side. So I'm not dispelling this idea of star-crossed lovers kind of thing. Like I'm like none of this, like none of my point of view here is saying that there's no validity to love. Like of course love matters. Like you don't just want to enter into an arrangement where you're going to be like physically
Mm-hmm.
repulsed by physically or emotionally or intellectually repulsed by your life partner. However, I think I'm imagining a world where you aren't just a like horny, uh, emotional, like hyperdrive, in your 20s person making a decision about who you're going to align yourself with for the rest of your life, or who you're going to be making like really big life altering decisions
Mm-hmm.
with. So even if you do like marry someone when you're 25 and then you get divorced when you're 40, like you've had kids, you've spent all of that time that you could have been like developing yourself as a person and developing yourself as a couple and developing yourself as a family. And all of that's for naught because you made a stupid decision based on
You're
hormones when you
saying
were
a
in your
whole
mid
bunch
20s.
of objectionable things here. I don't even know where to begin.
Okay,
Like,
but but
all
but
of it's
but
for
wait.
naught. Okay, how many? Do I get a notepad here to write down all the things I need to object to?
Okay, so it's not all for naught. However, I am saying that maybe there's a system and maybe AI has something to do with it where you're not forced. It's not like an arranged marriage where you're forced into it, but it's kind of like an arranged marriage in the sense that your family and your friends and the AI God have some say into your dating pool. And you like and the conversation about getting married involves a lot of really practical discussions about what kind of couple you want to be, what kind of family you want to be, what kind of career do you want to have, and how you both can like help elevate each other. And it's more of like a pitch instead of a romantic gesture. I kind of feel like that's a good idea.
Can I talk now?
Yes.
Okay. Just off the top of my head, some things I want to pin as like, slow down a second.
Mm-hmm.
People used to get married at, 14, 16, 17, 18.
Well, if they were
I know.
girls.
The shift to like mid 20s is already 10 years later than people used to get married, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's at an age where you're allowed to do every other important thing. You can get a rental car, you can go
A
to war.
rental car is not going,
No,
it's not
my point
having
though is that like,
children and becoming
you
financially
know,
and
your hormones
legally
aren't
attached.
raging in your mid 20s in the way they are as a teenager, you know?
Um, Hold on a second. Uh, Whoever made a good decision when they were in their 20s?
I mean, says
Ever.
Amanda Knox.
No, I'm saying about this for anyone. If
Well,
anything, I
yeah.
honestly got saved from a lot of bad decisions because I didn't have any for a very long time. So that's
All
one
right.
way. That's one little
I want
silver
to,
lining.
I just want to throw a hypothetical at you. 15 years from now or 20, let's say 20. Eureka's 24. Hell, let's make it 28. Eureka's 28. She comes to you and she says, I'm in love with this boy.
Uh-huh.
I want to move in with him, or her, sure. And it seems that there's genuine spiritual, romantic connection happening, but the object of her affections has no real practical benefits, no
He has a
prospects in
gambling
life.
addiction.
Yeah, no sustainable career, that sort of thing. Like, this is a classic story. It's been told in every Jane Austen book, and a million other things, right? You fall in love with a person who does not tick your boxes. It's song number 3 in Hamilton or whatever, right? The Eliza song, right? What it sounds to me like you're saying is, doesn't tick your practical boxes. I don't care if you're in love.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I'm not
I just want to be clear that that's what you're saying. That's what you'd say to your own child.
Yeah, I would say I'm concerned. I would not make it so that she was not able to make choices for herself. Not at all. However, I like the idea of there being a different sort of cultural tradition around, in the same way that the romantics changed the culture and made the tradition of marriage a completely different thing. I think that it would be valuable for people to really think about the practical side of marriage as a part as a very important part of their decision-making process.
You don't
And
think people do that these days?
I mean, I think that we all were force-fed Disney movies when we were little. And the story is they fell in love and kissed and lived happily ever after. And the truth of the matter is that no, they do not. And how many marriages end in divorce? And this isn't to say that so I think that people who go on to have divorces, it's not to say that they've wasted their lives. That's certainly, I'm not trying to make that case, because I think that every situation is an opportunity for growth and potential reaching and all of that. However, I don't know, if I had to choose between, do I hope that our marriage succeeds, or do I not care whether or not it succeeds? I hope our marriage succeeds, because you put a lot of time and energy into an alliance and into an identity, and you hope that that alliance and that identity is going to serve you and serve your partner and serve your family. And you want, if you want to just have the most, have your potential be fulfilled, you hope you're not putting time and energy in this on, betting on this horse, when just because you fell in love with that horse, you know what I'm saying? Are you not on the same page with me on this?
So I think that an ideal marriage is a union of both of these things. It's, you have a romantic, spiritual bond, and you have a practical alliance, and the two work in unison. And over time, any relationship is going to ebb and flow in various ways. Your closeness to each other is going to ebb and flow. Even your practical dependence on one another will ebb and flow in certain ways. And that's normal and to be expected. And so I think part of having a healthy marriage or any sort of partnership over the long term is expecting and anticipating that there are going to be times when the balance shifts, and the marriage feels more like a practical alliance. And there are going to be other times when you're madly in love and you make impractical decisions, like a impromptu trip to Paris, you know?
Hold on. You seem to be making the assumption that practical alliance means that you're not feeling love.
No, I didn't say that. I said the ideal scenario is both, and both at once, right? But that naturally those things will ebb and flow. And sometimes they'll both be at their nadir, and sometimes one will be ascendant while the other is not, and vice versa, right? And you should expect all those fluctuations. And so,
because I'm thinking that
yeah.
part of the arranged part of it takes into consideration also, that all of those physical neurochemical qualities, right? Like, say the AI god was in charge of this. The AI god wouldn't put before you suitors that wouldn't,
Wait,
are you
imagining that you could guarantee the practical alliance part of it stays constant, or that the spiritual connection part of it stays constant?
No, but I do think that I think that there is. I'm just thinking that potentially there are people who, have you ever you've even proposed to other people besides me, right?
Oh, sure.
You could have been married to someone else.
Yeah.
I could have been married to someone else. There's nothing there's nothing stopping you from, in some alternate universe, having had a different alliance that would have had, that might have produced a different version of you that, spent more time doing poetry than podcasting or, whatever. And I'm just thinking about how I do think we made a very good choice, because I think we're very well paired and we elevate each other quite a bit. But how many people actually make that choice, right? How many people recognize not just someone that they like and that they find sexy and that makes them feel special, but also someone who will help elevate them? You don't recognize that when you first are falling in love with somebody.
I think that my attitude here is kind of prosaic and unromantic about this in a way, which it sounds like yours is too, but I think in a different way. And it's that if you meet some minimum threshold of compatibility, and if you are on a trend line toward self-improvement and improving the union, then that's all that really matters, right? If you're committed to making yourself better, and if you're committed to making the partnership better, and if you meet enough baseline, and admittedly that line is kind of fuzzy, but if you meet enough baseline criteria of compatibility, then at some point you just, why not this one? This can be my soulmate.
Well, because some people enter into arrangements like that with people who are emotionally, psychologically, and or physically abusive, and being just willing to work on the union and being committed to work on the union isn't always in that person's best self-interest. You have to choose someone for whom the union is in your best interest. And I'm making the argument that all of us are not always good at that. Some of us fall in love with people for which the union is actually not in our self-interest. You know what I'm saying? So being committed to the union isn't actually going to be good for you.
Yeah, I suppose I would say that doesn't pass my baseline threshold of compatibility if someone's emotionally abusive toward you, right?
Okay, well, some people.
I guess, on one end of the spectrum, you have this, we all have a soulmate thing, right? Which is obviously ridiculous. What if my soulmate was born in China and speaks Mandarin and I'm just never going to meet her, or him? whoever, right? Because I didn't even figure out I was gay, you know? There's a and like obviously
You wish.
yeah, obviously that doesn't work, right? But the other end of the spectrum too, we're like, well, there's no soulmates and it's all just, practical alliance. I'm like, well, no, soulmates are a thing you can build, is kind of how I think about it. Right? Love is also something that you can build. It doesn't just arrive, right?
Sure,
And
but
it's something you have to keep building.
Can we get back to the arranged marriage part of the question, though? Because should it be solely in the hands of the individual to seek out and recognize and decide upon that person?
I mean, you're just talking about, this is just a bigger discussion about paternalism. Because you could say the same thing for, can you, Amanda Knox, be trusted to pick out your own health insurance? And the answer is no. I have to pick it out for you. It's part of this practical alliance. Right?
Of course it is. See, that's actually a great parallel. Because I know my limits. I know that I can't be trusted with our taxes. That's just, and so I relinquish that to someone who knows better than me how to get our taxes accomplished.
Now,
and so
not everyone has that ability to recognize their limitations, though, right? And so it's for you.
Well, I'm just going to argue that 25-year-olds are all, by definition, incapable of making life decisions about life partners. Maybe that's just controversial.
I mean, would you ban
opinion.
them from signing up for the military? Would you allow them to vote? You're going to make the voting age 30?
I think I have to let them vote. Yes, they should vote because decisions are being made about their bodies and all of that, so they should have a say.
Yeah, I mean, I think you got to trust people to make decisions about their own lives. And when you say, should it be up to the person? My answer is 100% yes, it should be up to the person. Does that mean you can't avail yourself of certain tools that might help your decision making, or seek advice, or hire a tax accountant to help you with your taxes?
Okay, can we go back then to the cultural part of it?
Yeah,
where
so
we de-romanticized marriage in our broader culture, because I feel like that's the thing that maybe I'm pinging on, is so much of the way that we were raised, hyper emphasized romance, and completely put aside and even discouraged any kind of thinking around the practical aspects of marriage and alliances.
I mean, you chose to marry a poet with 2 master's degrees in poetry.
I saw your potential, my dear. You were a diamond in the rough.
Yeah.
So
I mean, what I'm
don't
suggesting...
act like you're a worthless piece of shit. You do my taxes.
I think there's a parallel here to career choice. And for people of a certain generation and economic background, like us, our parents were for the most part, sure, get that liberal arts degree. I didn't face the pressure that a lot of my Korean immigrant friends did from their parents to become a doctor or a lawyer or maybe a dentist. And if my Korean friends in high school had told their parents they wanted to go into poetry, they would have had a stern talking to about how that was an unwise practical choice, right? And I think in some cultures, that practical side of who your life partner is has a lot more pressure coming down from the parents about whether or not it's a good match, right? And the family in general. And those kinds of considerations, mostly financial, right, remain a big part of that discussion for many people. Not for you and not for me, right? But we're also a tiny sliver of the populace.
And we got lucky. I'm just saying that people should know their limitations, and we shouldn't like romanticize romanticism.
I mean, what if it's more like, it's a libertarian position here, like give people the autonomy to do what they want to do.
Well, yeah, I never
But
suggested
also,
not have the autonomy, but I'm suggesting a shift in culture.
that's what I'm about to say. Make it more like taxes, where it's normal and even expected that you would hire an accountant to help you with your taxes, right? And at a minimum, you might use a piece of software like TurboTax to help you sift through it all. Well, if you were making the marriage decision, right, like maybe it should be normal and expected to talk to your romantic advisor.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, a romantic advisor, which used to be called a matchmaker. And I was in Fiddler on the Roof, and we know how it can go down the wrong path. But again, that's in old patriarchal societies. And we're not in that as, well, I don't know. It's not been looking good for us ladies recently. But yeah, let's not bring that back. Anyway, it would be cool if you had someone, and I like the idea of it potentially being an AI figure, because what the hell does your AI care? It's not going to have, like, it's not biased in...
Well, it is biased towards pleasing you.
Sure.
Right. There's a problem with the current chatbots. They're yes men.
Are you suggesting that if you were to give this,
I mean, every time you tell
ChatGPT
ChatGPT something, it's like, wow, what a great, insightful question. You're such a genius for asking that question.
No, first of all, you're hyperbolic. And second of all, I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that's a good question. All questions are, in fact, good questions. And I don't think that necessarily means it just always agrees with you. That's not true. You're being hyperbolic.
I spend more time with this than you do. I can tell you. And I've read about this and listened to AI experts talk about this, that it actually is an issue, because the way the reinforcement learning works is that they give you an answer that's satisfactory or not, right? And if the human on the other side says, I don't like this answer, it trains the AI not to give those kind of answers. And sometimes the thing that's good and healthy for your psychology or your physical, for your diet. What if ChatGPT tells you, stop eating cookies, and you say, I don't like that answer? It's going to learn not to tell you that answer.
I disagree. It's not like it's going to whatever. This is a whole different discussion about AI that's not relevant to this conversation. I think that there's still a baseline reality of like AI also has to reference actual scientific studies that suggest what is good for nutrition for you. And so if somebody doesn't like being told not to eat cookies, it still has to balance that against all of the research that says don't eat cookies. So,
I mean, sometimes it hallucinates studies that don't exist.
Okay, I'm suggesting a separate argument. I'm suggesting a world where we all have somebody who has an expertise in romantic partnerships and marriages and gives you feedback on your potential dating pool, and before you just make how did you decide to ask me to marry you? You didn't run it by anybody. You just decided.
You made the right choice.
You did, but if you were a dumbass, you could have made the wrong choice. And you know what? You did propose to someone else before me. And maybe that would have been the right choice too. But
again,
how did you you didn't run that. What I'm saying is you didn't run this by anyone. You just went, on the basis of your own feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And did you even think before asking me, what is our family going to be like? Or, did you have any of that in mind?
I think that I knew you wanted kids. We hadn't really talked about it that much. But I don't know. Again, I've used one analogy I used to think about this was like buying a car. You can go test drive different cars. Eventually, you have to get a car. You can't just test drive cars forever. I suppose you could lease But that's not wise.
Is it? Some people lease their whole
Yeah, I mean,
lives.
they always get a new car,
And then
and
you
then you
can't
have
have baby cars with a
yeah,
lease car.
no. But you can't just, if you do want a family, for instance, if you do want to build something together, you're eventually going to have to settle down for some duration, right? And I also want to just put on the table, I'm not saying that's for everyone or that that's necessary. Some people may prefer to be single their entire lives, so they may prefer little flings here and there, and that
Or
satisfies their needs.
Dan Savage would say that actually you should be, well, he doesn't say you should be anything, but he advocates for being monogamish, which is you have like your long-term steady partner, but then you have short-term like flings also.
Yeah, dalliances. Yes. Yeah, and that's to set aside the whole question of polyamory, which we're not debating here. But in terms of like having proposed to someone else before, yeah, I mean, as I said, it's like, well, you meet some minimum threshold of compatibility, and then you just say good enough, because, yeah, and it's not a very romantic thing to say good enough, right?
You're good enough. Will you marry me?
But essentially, that's really what it has to be from a practical level. And what you're assuming with good enough in my book is, okay, like, I know that I can see the vague outline of the life that I can build together with this person, and it looks awesome. And I think that they seem committed to making that awesome future together with me, right? And if you visualize that and you can see that, and then it doesn't mean that there's not a better one. There might have been an even more compatible person if you had just waited 6 months. You can't know that though, right? And if that's your threshold, if perfect compatibility is your threshold, then you never pull the trigger, right? So you have to lower your standard to some level of good enough, as unromantic as that sounds.
No, sure.
Right.
I agree with you. I'm just wondering if we can optimize this.
Yeah, I mean, look at the world of online dating, which you don't really know much about since it
No.
blossomed while you were in prison, and then you weren't
But I
really
think
able to do that.
but my understanding of the whole online dating issue and even app dating thing is, once again, there's no one on those apps, and this is a great app idea actually, is like the romance counselor. Like all that like dating websites do and dating apps do is show you the options. They're just like, here are the options. None of them give you any advice on what options you should gravitate towards.
I don't actually know that that's true, because we're not big users, aficionados.
Is there an app that gives you romance advice while also showing you the options? All right, maybe this is a question. This is a question for our listeners. If someone's dating right now,
there's a place called Takifi, which is high income matchmaking.
Yeah, but that's not the same, because it's, again, just showing you here's the options in a very specific pool, just like Christian dating's websites. So here are all the options of people who happen to be your religion. None of them are websites that have built into them a marriage counselor who is going to help you, like, ask you the questions you should be asking yourself as you're navigating the choices that are available to you on
I mean,
the site.
The business model for these things it's very short term, right? It's hard to like make it the success of it depend on whether or not you end up forming a relationship that lasts years.
But isn't that what eHarmony did all of their advertisements? Like 98% of all of our matches turn into marriage.
eHarmony's thing is that, I'm just looking at it right now, that personality profiles show how you and your matches connect. Like they're already using algorithmic things. You answer a bunch of questions, and then it tells you whether or not you're compatible based on their big data, right? So it's not a personalized counselor, but various sites do things like that and attempt to figure out if you are a match with somebody, not just based on swiping. So on the other end of the spectrum is Tinder, right?
Just
and
a free-for-all.
That's just, do I like this person? Yes. Do I like this person? No. And then the algorithm learns to show you what you like and what you don't like of people's faces, right? Which is what makes it a popular hookup thing, right? But if you're actually trying to connect with somebody long term, a face isn't going to tell you much information, right? The argument for that is that you need to get that information in person anyway, so you might as well filter by am I attracted and then go from there. But I don't know, that the idea you're suggesting that we all have a relationship counselor who advises us before we make these kinds of decisions, why don't you need that for every other realm of life?
Well, I think you might want that for every realm of life. Like, I don't know, it kind of goes back to that lady who I was talking to the other day who was like, I have one, as soon as my kids turned 13, I got them a therapist. And I was like, that's an interesting idea, because it's somebody who is not intimately connected with you and therefore would be biased towards you going one way or another depending on how it impacts them. Like, this is a person for whom, like, they have no actual, like, personal stakes for you making one decision or another. Their job is to help you figure out how to be fulfilled. And so one of those ways to be fulfilled is by having or choosing the right life partner. And
yeah, I could see that. I feel like you're oddly institutionalizing this, though. And like,
I know.
This is something that this function has been, and for many people probably still is, fulfilled by a network of friends and family who, when you start dating somebody, you can count on your friends and family to be like, oh, I really like her. Oh, he seems great, versus, I don't know about that guy, right? She's a snake, whatever, right? Like, you've told me stories where you're bringing a guy over to your family barbecue and having your relatives whisper in your ear that, who is this guy? That mechanism could be refined, and you would hope that people have kind of open and honest dialogues with their friends and family that can fulfill that function.
Well, and also that their friends and family are people who could give them good advice about stuff like that. Because other people are like, you're dating a black man, how dare you? Like, some people's, like, response is bullshit.
Yeah, so, that's true. That's a good point. Do you want your friends and family giving you financial advice? Not unless they're good with money.
Not unless they're good with money. Like, there's a reason why I ask my dad and not my stepdad about financial decisions.
That's also on you to recognize who's good with romance, who's good with money.
I'm just saying that that's a lot to ask a young person who's in the throes of romance. And again, like, I think it's just a cultural shift. I would shift more towards, I would shift a smidge away from the romance paradigm towards a more balanced paradigm.
It might be going this way anyway, to bring it back to the AI stuff. Like, online dating has obviously exploded in the last decade. And the statistics, if I recall from Gen Z, actually, let's just look it up real quick. Gen Z dating app statistics. Let's see. 78% of Gen Z report dating app burnout. That's interesting. Apparently, their use of dating apps has declined, with many preferring in-person interactions due to app fatigue.
I mean, I get that.
Huh.
But that's
not what I expected.
But that's also, I think that's great, because I think that you get to know a person by actually being with them. However, that's not to say that they're making decisions based upon seeking out advice or thinking about like that study or statistic doesn't say anything about whether or not they're thinking about the practical decisions when they're seeking out a dating or life partner.
And by practical,
well, okay, so here's an example.
What do you mean by practical?
But, well, here's a very good one. Just the choice of whether to date in the first place. So, like, I know a 24-year-old, and I was asking her about this because I was saying, "Oh, are you dating anyone?" And she was just like, "No. Why would I be dating someone right now?" And because she like then explained to me she's not at the time of her life when dating is valuable to her, because right now she's trying to get her career started. And so she's not even bothering to go out and date people because that would just frick with her plans of like self-fulfillment and evolution. And she's like, I'll start dating when I'm ready to like invite someone into my life in that intimate way. But like right now, I'm 24, and like I don't need some guy hanging. Like I don't need to spend all of that energy chasing somebody that like I may or may not even, hang in. And I thought that was just like so interesting because when I was 20, like of course I was dating. Like, of course I was.
Yeah, I mean, your hormones are
I would
telling you
go
to.
to, well, I would go to the rock climbing gym and there'd be a cute guy climbing with a kilt. Like, of course I'd want to date him. Like, no part of me would be thinking, this is not the time of my life to be dating. And like, I just thought that was so interesting. Like, oh, she had a really practical mindset around it.
Yeah,
Whereas
but it
here I
also
am, an
maybe it just means
emotional,
she's not
romantic
feeling
idiot.
the same hormones, to bring it back to the neurochemistry. But, are you suggesting that we should be, that when, again, to bring it back to Eureka, say, when she's 24, 28, whatever, that the potential suitors should be algorithmically determined based on psychological and financial and cultural background factors, and then you go meet those people,
I
or is
think
it
that would be
something?
interesting. I think that would be interesting as opposed to just leaving it up to chance. Like at this point right now, it's just left up to chance and feelings. And that doesn't spell,
No,
success
you're
to
wrong
me.
about this.
Okay.
I'm right about this. I
Okay.
think the answer instead is education. It's like literacy. It's emotional and partnership literacy, right? Like you say that people are bad at making these decisions. And I think, yeah, it's true. People are bad at making these decisions. They're also bad at voting. One of the reasons they're bad at voting is because we got rid of civics and they don't understand how government works and they don't understand economics. They're bad at economics. They don't make decisions in their own economic best interest. The answer to that isn't to like take away their ability to vote for themselves and outsource it to some voting consultant. The answer is to like educate people about economics and civics, right? Likewise,
I
I
don't
think
think
if
a voting consultant is a bad idea if it's somebody that's like totally independent. Like they would just look at you and
yeah.
be like, "Oh, well, your family's into coal mining. What's it in your best interest for them?" Like it's kind of an interesting idea. But that said, of course,
Yeah.
of course you would want
Immediately
your
paid
kids.
for by big pharma.
Well,
Yeah.
no, it's not. It'd have to be totally independent. However, what I'm saying is that, yes, of course, education, great. Sounds great. But everyone can't be an expert in everything, right? Like, this is where I'm saying, like, I go to my dad for financial advice and not some other kind of advice because my dad's really good at one thing and not another thing. And the same is true of me. And I would hope that somebody would not come to me for financial advice. That's just not my strong suit. And
Okay,
so
so maybe a part of this is recognizing your limits, figuring out what your strong suit is, what your strong suits are. But a lot of people can be generally competent in a fair number of things. I'm not an accountant, but I'm pretty decent at doing the taxes. And I had to
well, and
learn
you're
how to
the
do that, you
and then
know?
the argument is, well, considering the fact that if you are going to enter into a partnership, that is probably going to be one of the most important relationships of your life. So you should have some base level of education around choosing and maintaining that kind of partnership. So sure. I still wouldn't say no to a consultant is what I'm saying. So I think we should just at this point leave it up to our listeners. I want to hear what they think. Am I insane? Is
Marriage
Chris
consultants.
marriage consultants? I mean, I'm sure they exist. It's just like there's not a cultural sort of norm around going to them. And I think there should be more of a cultural norm around going to them.
Whereas I think the cultural norm should be around learning emotional regulation, learning learning the habits of effective partnership, and learning how to recognize if you're compatible with someone. Like learning
Okay,
to,
but all of these
know,
are things that used to be a part of culture. Like I'm even thinking that some people used to go to like back when marriage was considered more of a religious institution than a secular, like legal one. Like in order to get married, you had to go to your priest and talk to the priest about your intention to get married. And it wasn't just like set a date. It was like you had to talk to him and like have like multiple sessions, you and your partner, with your priest as he would talk to you about the institution of marriage. And like that was your marriage counselor.
You're like, we should bring that back,
yeah,
but not with priests.
but not with religion. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, you don't want a government bureaucrat doing that, right?
No, you don't want that either. You can choose your own tradition, but I think we should bring that back.
Bring back the idea of like before you, and it's not just, so this is marriage specifically, marriage, not just dating.
No, marriage.
Where does this?
I'm date, like whatever, you're going to date. Marriage.
Okay.
This is because it was treated as like, especially in the Catholic Church, like you can't get divorced. So make the right choice. And in order to like help facilitate that socially, like, okay, people are making choices based on romantics, but in order to get like the bottleneck was you had to do it through a church. And then the priest was the one who was trying to facilitate, good choices.
I think the
regard.
most charitable version of what you're talking about here is basically like the relationship version of a career counselor. In the same way that we think that young high school students probably need some guidance on who they're going or what school and what career path they want to pursue, because there's a lot of options and, it's hard to think about that when you haven't ever. So we offer career counseling, right? And you're saying 5 years later, they need relationship counseling to figure out. Yeah.
Yeah. And you can go to this like person, like say you're 3 years into a relationship and you're dating someone and you're like, oh man, now this may be like actually a serious relationship territory. Then you go to your romance counselor and go, wow, like I'm kind of at this point, this threshold where it's like, do I make it serious or do I move on to the next thing? Like they can help you figure that out.
This is a Shark Tank idea.
Yes.
And then you can also sell custom proposal packages if you want to pop the question in that big way. But of course, that would incentivize them to say yes. So you also have to sell packages.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? Like the art of breaking up is just as refined as the art of proposing. So.
Okay. Well, I think we're asking for 500,000 and 10% stake for the marriage counselor business. All right. You know where to find us. We will love to debate any questions you have. Submit any topics for Who's Right or questions for future Ask Amanda Anything episodes at Amanda's Substack, amandaknox.substack.com, or via amandaknox.com. And in a pinch, you can DM Amanda on one of her many social handles.
Indeed. Thanks so much. Marriage. Bye.